Hello and welcome. Today is a stream that's a little bit different from some of the ones that we've done before here in the Secret Scribes channel, and that a lot of times they've been roundtable discussions of different members of the Secret Scribes talking to each other. Today, I'm going to be interviewing Natalie Kelda, who has her upcoming book, The Reflections of Lilia Damselfly, coming out soon. And I'm going to be interviewing her. We're going to talk about her books, her process, and also we're going to ask the deep, hard-hitting questions about things like, the best drink and dogs or cats and different things like that. So stick around. You definitely want to be here for this. Welcome, Natalie and Barry to the screen.
And Barry, he's going to leave because he's mad. I just picked him up, so he's annoyed now.
Poor Barry. All right.
Maybe we're just going to have his tail for this.
Well, Barry's tail is joining us for this. It's a very important part of any stream is a cat tail just waving across the screen. So, Natalie, you're here today. We're going to be talking about your new release, but thought we'd start out with just kind of giving us a rundown on who you are as a writer, different things you've written over the years, just anything you want to talk about.
Oh, there's a lot. I mean, I started making stories when I was still I couldn't read or write. So I would draw pictures of dinosaurs and then I would staple it all together. And I would tell my parents that I made a book. So basically storytelling is just always, oh God, he's going to knock all the books down, I think. Storytelling has always been like a thing for me. It's always been something I come back to. So I've had long breaks. I've got quite stressed in uni in Denmark. And I stopped writing for 4 years and started traveling. Yeah, he's destroying everything. I don't know if you can see Barry in the background just knocking things down.
Good job, Barry. We're proud of you.
Yeah. But yeah, so I moved to the UK from long way around. So basically I've lived in Denmark, moved to Australia, moved to the UK, and that's when I started writing in English because I started uni here in the UK. And that sort of spurred me into, I had to write in English for my essays and stuff, reports and stuff like that. So I think that sort of got me started in English. And then I haven't actually written anything in Danish since I started writing in English 8 years ago now. So yeah, I never really planned it. It just, I had a funny dream, and I ended up writing a book, which is my debut. River in the Galaxy. So that is the first whole story I wrote in English. I think I'd maybe written half a short story before that in English, but otherwise I'd always been writing in Danish. So that's sort of, but it just changed the way, what I wrote, everything like that. I used to mostly do historical fiction about Vikings, of course. But yeah, so that's sort of how I started writing in English, and then it just cascaded from there. It very quickly, the one book turned into 7 books, which is currently now 10 books in the series that I've written, not all of them out. Actually 11 books. I just finished one a few weeks ago. 11 books, okay. I guess, in the series, yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like sometimes you say the first book you read in English was basically that first novel, and you were just kind of like, I'll write that, and you just wrote a novel in English. I'd say I have a little bit of a different thing in that obviously I was always writing in English, but like I'd never written a fantasy story until I was just like, I'm going to write one, and I wrote a novel from that. So like, I think sometimes you just have to do it, and it just becomes so much more than maybe like you might have just started out as like, I'll try writing something in English. And then suddenly you've got an 11 book series and another one coming up here. So that's really interesting. We're going to talk about the historical fiction aspect here in a little bit. related to, I'm going to just say it over and over again now because I know how to say the name, Lilia. Before the show started, guys, we had a pronunciation lesson because I was saying Lil J, and she was like, no, that's not how you say the name. So we are going to come back to all that here in a second. CB Lansdale is here in the chat. It says, great to see Barry Tail.
Yeah, he's left again. He destroyed everything in the background. Now he's gone.
And Annette is here. She says, hi, Dave, Natalie, and of course, Barry.
Yeah, I mean, Barry is the real star. It's not really me or my book. It's Barry.
You should just write, get a alternate cover of your books, and it's just a portrait of Barry.
It would probably sell way better.
So your first series is all about ships in outer space, correct? I have some of the books on my Kindle, and I know the covers are really cool with like the ships in outer space. So how does that work?
So basically, yeah, it all started from a dream. The first, I think, 13 chapters of River in the Galaxy, that's all from, I have very elaborate dreams. That's all from the dream. So I had to sort of work it out as I was going because I knew what the quest was and I knew sort of the setting because I saw it in the dream, the starting scenes and everything. But I had to work out how do tall ships, how do they fly around in space? How are people not flying off? How are they breathing? How are they not dying? Stuff like that. But basically, there's powder alchemy. So humans don't have magical skills. There are some people that can see energy currents moving in the air. They have to concentrate to do it. They can't do anything with it. They can just see it, which does help them navigate, finding routes where there's more energy streams through outer space. And obviously outer space is a vacuum and all that, but there's sun and stuff like that. So if there's light, there'll be streams of energy that can follow. Oh, thank you. So there's powder alchemy, which means they treat the wood. So when they harvest the tree, they treat the wood, and it keeps it sort of alive. It'll keep, even though they shape it into, they can shape it into anything, but they shape it into ships. It still grows. So if they break, they can actually just put the pieces of wood together and pour water on it, and put more of the powder infused lye on it, and it will just grow straight back together. So that's the first aspect, and the next aspect is the sails. So it's sort of solar sails, but not really. So again, the fabric is powder infused, so it can capture energy, and that sort of energy it captures, it creates like a tiny atmosphere around the ship. So you can, if you fall off the ship, you will, like 5-6 feet outside of like the ship, the sails and the hull of the ship, you enter the vacuum of space and would die. I do take some liberty with some of that. People basically think that they can keep floating forever, which they can't really, but I take a little bit of liberty with that some places.
I think we have to take some liberty sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it doesn't any of that with like the wood. So basically the wood still photosynthesizes. So that's also how they have quite clean air on the ships. But also these people, they're humans, but it's actually set really, really far in our future. If you read the whole series, I think you might, because there's Easter eggs throughout, especially a little bit in book 2 and 3, and then again in book 6. There's quite a lot of, and a little bit in 5, I suppose. There's Easter eggs which tell you about the more sci-fi side of the universe, because there is a sci-fi,
right,
where they have fusion energy and solar power and everything. But I don't find that quite as interesting as like ships in space. So I never really like set a whole book there. I just sort of sprinkle it in sometimes. But these people, they are evolved, and they basically have better oxygen uptake, so they can breathe almost anywhere, not everywhere, but almost. So yeah.
And did you do a lot of research about like ships and all of that aspect? Because I know that's one of the I want to write some things like that within my world, and I'm just like I need to do the research to actually learn all the stuff about ships. So I assume you did some scientific research related to like all of the breathing in space, or did you just like be like, did you just kind of decide within the alchemy, everything you just described, that's how it works? Or did you try to like figure out a science behind those things as well?
It's a mix of I've woven together science and completely made up crap.
Right.
For lack of a better word. So some of the things I will throw in science terms. So while I started writing this, I was doing a bachelor in biology.
Okay.
That's had quite a lot of effect. That's why there's talk of evolution and stuff like that. And they'll throw certain characters will be like, oh, the reason the trees are still breathing in the ship is because of the lenticels are still working, which is something only biology people will actually understand, that lenticels is something that we have in trees, which is the bits of the tree that perform photosynthesis and gives oxygen and takes up CO2. So I'll throw in stuff like that, so it feels like it is sciencey, but also it's just powder alchemy. So it's
Right.
not. Yeah, it's a mix, which I think at least that's what I see a lot in reviews, that people really like that mix because it makes it just plausible enough that you're not completely lost. I have seen one. I think there was one review for one other book, I can't remember which one, that said that nothing made sense and it was completely bonkers. And I was really happy about that because I was just saying before that I've been rereading Discworld and everything is completely bonkers and I love it. Nothing makes sense, but it all makes sense. And I think my series, while it's a lot darker, is probably a little bit like that, where there's just enough plausibility for most readers anyway.
Mm-hmm. I feel like with a lot of sci-fi, it's just kind of like, here is this scientific thing that like, yes, you might know, and now I'm taking that and completely making it do things that it can't actually do and saying that's what it does, and space travel. So
well, it is like, yeah, definitely. And
so
then with the nautical side, with the ships, I get slightly obsessed about. I'm autistic, so I'll have like special interests, and tall ships is definitely anything sort of pre-electricity. Really, I love anything history like that. I studied archaeology in Denmark before I quit because I got depressed. There's no jobs basically in archaeology. But I've done extensive research, so the ships sort of like it. I use all normal ship language basically, all the halyards, and like there's no ropes on the ship unless it's something like you're tying something downstairs with. It's all halyards and lines and rad lines, and I try to sort of use all the correct language, so it feels like it is really a tall ship, but it's just in space.
I know whenever my older brother and I were little, my dad is a history professor, and we would go to the university library because he'd be like researching or whatever, and we'd go down and find like the old like these naval journals that were like all of these pictures of old naval ships, and we would just like study them for hours. Like I think they're incredibly cool. I don't like the things like starboard, and like all. So I need to like make a list of what they all mean.
Yeah, what everything is.
Use them correctly, because I know like the gist of it. But then I'm like, if I say the starboard bow, I can't tell you what side that actually is because I get all turned around within it.
Yeah, starboard is right and port is left, and then the bow is the front and the stern is the rear. Yeah.
But it's just like little things like that. I just need to have a list of that on the side so that I can remember it all, because it
But
is
also you can literally just Google things like parts of ship and it will tell you everything. So it's quite easy now to Google things, as long as you make sure it's not AI, because that honestly that's one that's really, really easy. You can't get an AI tall ship because of all the lines and
right.
halyards and sails. I spot it instantly when there's one that's not like proper. It's not like mine on all photography that my cover artist she manipulates and stuff.
Right.
Because I would be able to see it immediately, and I would be so annoyed.
I feel like something like a tall ship or something is kind of AI would just sort of gloss over a lot of the like details and just be like, here is ship. But there's all of those little things that we don't really, if you're just looking at a ship, you're not seeing those things unless you actually know how it's set up.
I that was one way to figure out how it's all set up. So I drew
cool.
Lucia, which is Merlin's ship, like the River in the Galaxy ship, and having to do that because I've actually drawn it really big. I've got a big image of it as well somewhere. I need to hang it. But doing that's a really good task, even if you're just doing like a stick drawing, because you have to figure out where does that line go to there, how does the sails sit, stuff like that, where you don't have to draw it as elaborately as I've done it, but just figuring out, because then you have to look at pictures of real ships and you have to follow the lines and everything. That's a really good way to learn how everything fits together.
Right. Annette says if the story and the characters hook you enough, you're definitely more willing to go with the flow. Connected back to like the whole science thing, but also probably like if you've got great characters and a great story, and then someone's like, well, this isn't actually the way that they sailed on ships in the 1600s. You're like, it's not the 1600s. They're different ships. But I think, Annette's definitely correct there. And then she also says the starboard bow is where the Klingons are. Star Trek. I was more of a Star Wars person, Annette. I liked some Star Trek.
I've not watched either.
I mean, they're fun.
Which is just insane because I'm writing space fantasy. But
there were some really good Star Wars books after the original movies. They're one of my favorite sci-fi authors growing up. Timothy Zahn wrote a bunch of books within the Star Wars universe that were really, really good. They were better than all of the movies because they just like had a lot more to them and like better characterizations and everything like that. But I've also always liked books more than movies, so
I might try the books. My dad really tried to get, because he loves Star Wars, like that's his thing. I can't remember what it was called, but it was in the 90s. There was some sort of computer game where you're on a spaceship and you have
TIE
to shoot
Fighter and X-Wing. I played those back in the 90s.
I can't remember which one, but like he loved playing those, and he's very autistic as well. If you can't tell, his hobbies as a kid was fishing and making model airplanes.
Okay.
Like it's just very very stereotypical. But so he really tried to get me into Star Wars, and I don't know why. I never connected with it. We tried several of the early movies. So I think he sort of gave up and he was like, okay, we'll just, Lord of the Rings is coming out. So he took me to the cinema, and that clicked very much for me. So I'm always, for me, Lord of the Rings is just a whole other level.
I've seen those movies, but like they're ones that like it's so long and I have a horrible attention span for movies. Like I've seen them and they are very well done, but in general I like things to be a little bit less over the top serious epic all the time. And so they're good. That's my hot take, is that the Lord of the Rings movies, I've only seen them all the way through once and I thought they were fine. So please don't cancel the internet.
It's not for, no, it's not for everyone. I say the same with the books. I love the books. I listen. I have the Andy. If you ever need to listen to them, get the Andy Serkis version. Mm-hmm. Skip the song.
I read them all. I DNF'd the second book about 3/4 of the way through when I was in high school because it was just like travel across Middle Earth, fight someone, travel back across Middle Earth, do something, travel back. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. I did read them afterward later on, and they are good. I can, like, Tolkien was a master and everything like that, but they're not really my favorite style in terms of, like, I like things that are a little bit less epic maybe and more like everyday characters, which, like, Bilbo is, like, The Hobbit, I think I liked a little bit more than Lord of the Rings in some ways. Maybe because it was one book instead of,
and it's shorter as well. I think he went a little bit ham with the word count. I think that happens a lot, especially today with really popular authors. The books just get bigger and bigger.
The really popular epic fantasy.
Some books need to be really big, but a lot of books don't. Like a lot of books need. There's Jim. What's it called? Yeah, Jim Butcher. Yeah.
Right.
His books, they just get bigger and bigger, and they don't get better. They just get more repetitive. Because I like some of his books are really good because they're tight, and then others are just.
I think I've read one or two of his books. I got really burnt out on urban fantasy because I read a bunch of it, and I've tried to read the.
I have very hot take opinions about Dresden Files, so let's.
I've tried to read the Dresden Files, and I couldn't get through the first book, but I was also really.
Barry is there.
So Tim says, "Hello, happy Saturday. Did I miss Barry? Yes, Barry is a loaf currently.
He's there. You missed him knocking everything down."
But we'll come back to your spicy take on the Dresden Files here in a little bit. So let's actually talk for a minute about the reason that you're here today, which is your new release that's about to come out. Which is Reflections of Lilia Damselfly, which it's coming out on the 20-something.
23rd. Right? It's 2 weeks tomorrow. Yeah.
2 weeks from tomorrow. And it is, so whenever you said that you started out writing historical fantasy, that I had a little moment because I was like, well, that makes so much sense with this story because it really is like very much a historical novel with some, you know, fantasy elements added in. Like, and chat, I have not finished the book yet because reading is hard if it's not an audiobook, but I've read like 65 pages of the 180 and it's really, really good. It has the kind of Victorian slash I'm going to say Regency, but I think it's probably a little bit later on than the Regency era. Yeah. But like that vibe, which I absolutely love. Grew up, my mom was a huge Jane Austen person. I've read all of those books. We watched every single one of those like miniseries. And so like for me, it hits that spot of that time period that I love, and, you know, just some really, really lovable characters so far. And just like the world, you can tell the science background with some of the like describing maybe sort of like how she is reacting out of the water and things like that. Like I can see your biology background in there, but it's definitely not hitting you over the head or anything like that. Like I am a scientist. But it is really, really good. Would you call it a novel or a novella, first of all?
It's technically it is a novel because it's 52,000 words. But I'd usually call it a short novel just so people don't think they're getting 350, 400 pages, because it's in print version, it's 200 pages, 180, I think, in the ebook. So yeah.
Tim is excited to read it. We'll talk about the audiobook here in a minute, Tim. I know information about that already. Annette says it's beautiful inside and out. CB says Lilia is such a memorable novella. It's not a novella, it's a novel. Get with the program. Come on. Edwardian, there we go. Okay. I see you in the chat being like, it's not Victorian, it's not Regency, it's Edwardian. Get a clue, Dave.
It's difficult because Edwardian, it's really only like a 15, 20 year period, so it's tiny. But the fashion, oh my God.
The teddy boys.
Yeah, just the fashion was just immaculate. I loved it, which is why like I'm sewing
right.
All sorts of clothes. This is like slightly inspired, and yeah.
For me, I can't even I don't remember like what Edwardian fashion looks like within the actual Edwardian period, but I know about like the teddy boys in the 1950s who dressed in Edwardian fashion. And so I'm like, I know what it is, but I definitely know it more from that. But Annette says the fashion descriptions are immaculate. Especially like the part I just read recently where like she's just looking out the window. They're like, get away from the window. And she's like, what? And like, you have to put clothes on. She's like, oh. And then like dressing her, and she's like, these clothes are scratchy on my skin. And like the voice is just really, really cool, where it like you're not reading it like this is a person trying to sound like they are she's a water nymph, correct?
Yeah.
I didn't know if there was another term.
No, I've not. Like, I'm still half convinced that she was a real spirit or something and just possessed me, because her story, like the way it's told, it's first person. It's just the descriptions and everything. It's actually really different from, I think, anyone that's read both that one and then go over and read my main series. I'm sure you see similarities in the writing and voice, but it's so different. So I keep saying that she probably just possessed me and made me write the book. Yeah.
But yeah, the voice is really, really strong. And I know some people are like, I like first person. I've written a lot of it over the years. I know some people like the Evil Bill Adams are very like, they kind of anti first person most of the time.
I don't have an opinion. Like, I will read it in any point of view, style, whatever, as long as it's good.
Richard's here. Let's see. What was my next question? Oh, this is the most important question here. Before we get back to your books, tea or coffee?
Tea.
All right, guys, stream's over. No,
I live in England. So I have to say tea.
So I love coffee. My wife thinks coffee is the grossest thing ever. And
yeah, I'm not. Tea. Like, I won't even chocolate or something like that with coffee. Tiramisu, I can't eat it because there's too much coffee in it. It just
that's how she doesn't eat anything sweet that even has like coffee flavor.
Yeah, same. We would get along.
So you guys both have terrible taste. No. So what is your favorite type of tea?
Right now I'm having a peppermint tea because it's 6 p.m. My favorite is like a really nice chai latte, but obviously there's caffeine in that and it ruins my sleep. So
I do really like chai. I mean, I like tea. I'm just not as like into it as my wife, who's obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with coffee.
Yeah.
So let's see. My next question. Could you pick up your copy of the Inner Universe?
Inner Universe.
Show it. Do you have one that has the fancy sides, sprayed edges?
Yes.
So
you can't even see it, but it is actually metallic. Like I
mean, you can kind of get the glint. So you offer those on your website?
Yes. So I think they're £12 probably, which means they are actually, I think they're cheaper than they are on Amazon. So obviously, if you're in the US, you do have a bit of shipping to pay, but if you're in the UK, it's free shipping. So I don't understand why people are still in the UK. I can see them buying my paperbacks from Amazon, and I'm like, you can get them cheaper with sprayed edges, and you also like you get free artwork and stuff like that if you buy from my stuff.
So how did you do your sprayed edges? Since I just did my own, I'm interested to see like what was your method?
At first I actually, this is one of the first ones I did. So I actually put like plastic bags over the top of it, which was not a very good idea. So it's not ideal. But then I bought really expensive masking tape for Lily Damselfly. Like this is not, it's not going to have that color. I think I found a blue that matches her dress. Okay. So it's going to be a blue one. This is just my cover copy because the spine is wrong. But with this one, I used masking tape all the way around. And then just, pieces of wood and clamps, and that's it. But because it's so damp over here, if you're in the UK or anywhere damp, once you've sprayed them, bring them somewhere you can put like a hot air fan because otherwise it doesn't dry. Like it just, when you then go to break it, it just all falls off. That took a bit of figuring out that it was because it's just so damp here all the time.
I live in like Oklahoma, which is in sort of the south central United States. And this time of year, there's constant thunderstorms and tornadoes and just kind of like a lot of rain. But it's relatively warm too. But like in one day, it might be pretty warm. And then there's a thunderstorm for 3 hours. And then it's really warm again. So I kept having to like go out and grab my books and bring them because I had them in the backyard. Bring them somewhere where they would not get rained on for a few hours and then take them back out once it had dried off so that they could continue to like dry off in the heat. So just like, weather makes it really hard on trying to do these DIY things. But I saw those, I think after you'd mentioned on Twitter that you'd done them as well. I looked at your website and saw that they were on there and that you had them for sale. So I wanted to make sure that we talked about them here so that if you're in the chat and you do not have copies of her books, buy them from her. They are cheaper than Amazon. Who would you rather get the money? Natalie, who would you rather, not even going to talk about Natalie here. Would you rather Barry get the money or Jeff Bezos? Barry Bezos. There's only one correct.
He's put his back on us, but he would like to take money. Yeah,
it's because he knows you bought it off Amazon and you made him really sad.
I also do drop shipping, so I do unsprayed edges drop shipping to EU and US. So I think that's maybe £5 shipping.
It's a lot
or something.
cheaper, I know.
Yeah, but you still get like a bookmark, and then you get like a little one of these little, it's a sticker that you can put in the book, so you've still got the author stamp, because I've got fibromyalgia, so I can't, holding a pen hurts a lot, so I get little wooden stamps, which they actually have my signature, all of them.
That's cool. I mean, I feel like that's
so I make a different one for each sort of arc in the series, and then now I've made a different one again specifically for Lilia's book. So it's sort of a unique way to do it, I suppose, but just to get around not having to hold a pen. Half the time I can't hold a toothbrush probably. So
so with Lilia, were there any books that were sort of that you might consider a book that kind of inspired you, or that you looked at as an example of like kind of to go with what you were writing? Or like you said, was it just something that just came from your mind and you wrote it?
There probably are inspirations and I'm not aware of them. So this happens quite a lot for me, but so she came to me in a dream. Last year I went to Wales for a road trip with my mum, and we were a little bit late booking a place to stay, so we ended up in the seediest, grossest hostel I've ever been to. And I've been around the world a couple of times, so I've seen things, but this one was bad, like really horrible. And my mom and I were just like, oh my God, how are we sleeping in this? Because they'd not changed the bed sheets or anything. It was horrible. Right. So I had like a really bad sleep, and I was sort of like half awake most of the night. But then early in the morning, I had a really vivid dream. And I did what I always do. I picked up my phone, quickly started typing. My mom thought it was ill because it was just sitting like a little Smeagol over my phone trying to type it. And then I think I was in the middle of drafting something else. So I finished that off. And I write down so many dreams I have, but I would say probably 99% of them I don't do anything with. I just have idea notes for centuries. But she wouldn't leave my mind. Like I just kept. So the opening scenes up until she walks upstairs, that whole opening sequence is from the dream. So I knew already when I'd had the dream, I knew that she was gonna probably fall in love with Mel, because in the dream she was just like so fascinated. She loved like the yellow flowers, was like really sort of super vibrant in the dream for some reason. So yeah, she just wouldn't leave me alone. So I think I finished off whatever I was drafting, and then as soon as I finished that, I was just like, I need to just try and sit down and write this. And it felt very stream of conscience. Like I didn't even I took no breaks. Normally I probably took I try to enforce myself to take 1 or 2 days off every week, but I didn't. Normally I take, in the middle of a book, I would take like 3 or 4 days off. But I didn't do that. I just wrote straight through. And it's almost like it's very, very little I've changed. It's basically just very tiny word tweaks. There's nothing that's been moved around, not even a paragraph, I think, anywhere, because it was just so stream of conscience. So that's why I say I was probably possessed by a water nymph or the spirit of her. So yeah, I'm sure there are something that's inspired me. Definitely Edwardian fashion would have inspired me, because I'm really into fashion history. But otherwise, I don't know specifically what it would have been. I've not read any cozy fantasy yet. I've got Miss Percy's Pocket Guide to the Care and Feeding of Dragons on my Audible. I've got them all, and I've still not listened to them. I've not read Legends of Latte or any of those. Yeah.
I was going to ask
all
one
on
of
my
my
list
later
to
questions.
read, but I haven't read them. Yeah, so I don't know where it's come from, to be honest.
One of my later questions was going to be like, did you plot it out, and obviously you've already answered that as no, it just came from your mind. With your other books, are those something that you outline and plot out, or are you more of a you write as you go?
I very much just sit down and write. I do like, if I have something I need to write as a short story, then I'll do a very loose bullet points of what I need to get through. It's just to keep myself from making it into a novel, basically. But if I have a short story for an anthology or something, or subcall, anything like that, then I'll plot it out very loosely. But like my novels, that's what I wasted probably 10 years trying to plot novels, because that's what all the books say that you should do. When you read craft books, they're always like, make an outline, plot it out ahead, otherwise you'll write yourself into a corner and stuff like that. But I've never done that, and I'll go back, and there's things that I completely forget is in the first couple of books. and it becomes it becomes relevant in like book 7 or 8.
Right.
Just it seems like it's by accident. It's probably because I remember I wrote something, but it's not like it will seem like I've planted the seeds on purpose, but it's not on purpose. It just sort of happens.
I mean, maybe in like somewhere in your subconscious it's on purpose and you just don't remember it. But I think I'm definitely more like, I try to do a little bit of an outline just to get some ideas flowing, but I definitely change everything after the outline to where the outlines aren't really the story that ever comes from it. But outlining's hard.
It is, yeah.
It's
like
put it
writing
off.
a synopsis or something to me. Like it's not the easiest thing.
I know some people like write these 60,000 word outlines or whatever, and it's like, are they writing really intense outlines? Yeah, and I'm just like, that sounds like so much work. I just want to like write a bunch of dialogue between these characters and then make some scenes out of it. So this one obviously does have romance. Does your other series have romance in it? Is it more like an action-based type story? I know this one's more of the cozy romantic kind of story.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out if I can call it romantasy, just because it'll be easier to sell. But I think
I think you can call it a cozy romantasy. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'll try and then see if people start shouting at me. My other books, it very much depends on who's the main character. The first 2 books, it's Merlin, and he has tiny bit in the second book. There's not really anything at all in the first, because he's so depressed and in his head that he's not really thinking about it. Some of the others, like Balfour's trilogy, the one that's currently just book 3 needs to be published in September. He wanted to be in like a spicy romantasy for sure, and I'm not allowing him. I'm just putting him through all the worst things that can ever happen to a character. He goes through them all, which is probably really mean.
I mean, that sounds like a spicy romantasy too. They put them through all of the horrible things, but then they have some spicy scenes.
Yeah. Well, there's no spicy scenes. So his books, that are definitely some romance in those. But then some of them, like the first book I'll publish next year, I think. Dahlia, she's a romantic, so she doesn't really care about stuff like that. So for her, there's a fling, but it's not a romance fling. It's just it very much it depends on who the character is, because sometimes they're just not interested in it, or it's not part of their current arc or whatever.
Right.
But it's always a side plot. In the main series, it's always a side plot. It's never sort of a big focus.
That's kind of what I like as a reader and as a writer. Whenever I like there to be a little bit of a romance in there somewhere, but I don't want it to be like the focus of the book. But like, one of my main characters is a romantic asexual. And so like, she has no interest in that. One of the other characters has interest in it with one of the side characters. And so like, there is a little tiny bit of a romance plot there, but it's not, not everyone has a romance, which can sometimes get a little bit like, if you have a book where there's 6 characters and at the end they pair up in groups of 2 and they're in love or whatever, it's like, that's a little easy. That worked out too well. And then you have someone like Timothy Wolfe, who has a lot of romance in his novellas, but it's all sad and they never get together and it's all one-sided.
It's very one-sided, isn't it? Slightly delusional.
Yeah. I don't know. There were times in Whisper That Replaced God where I was like, oh, they'd be kind of a cute couple, even though he's insane.
Yeah, you sort of you end up thinking like, oh, maybe he's not that bad, and he's like just completely nuts. But yeah, still sort of endearing, even though he's just crazy. Yeah.
Well, and that's another example of a first person story where I feel like the voice is really strong, and like from what
Yeah.
I've read of Lilia so far, like it's very much like super strong voice. I feel like if it were written in third person, it would lose a lot of what it is as a story, because we're getting all these things from her perspective, kind of like that. And this is actually going to sound like I'm using this to mean like because she's from water. I was going to say a fish out of water situation, which
Yeah.
like yeah, she kind of actually. I mean, she's not a fish, but basically the whole like she knows nothing of human culture and just like showing up into it like through third person. I feel like it just wouldn't quite hit the same. So I think it
Yeah.
was a really good
Yeah.
choice.
It needs to be very, very close to her, I think, to feel sort of, yeah, to, yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but it definitely, there was no, because normally I do most of my books are in third person, but for her it was just, it definitely, I just knew instantly. I think, what does it start with? I think I knew it from the beginning. I think I actually changed the first sentence. Yeah, I changed the first sentence to make it more romancy. So now the first sentence is, we met the first spring after I got sick. But that used to be, I think, a little bit further down. I think that was, yeah, that was one sentence. But that's how it just started. At first I thought nothing much of my sudden illness. That's how it just came in. Like I knew that it had to be her sort of telling her story. Because that's what it felt like to me, that she was telling me her story, and I just had to write it down how she was telling it, basically.
Right. First person also works really well with like short stories and novellas and shorter novels. It can sometimes be difficult to write. Like if you're trying to write a 800 page epic or whatever, and it's all in first person, at some point your character might start to get a little like people are like, oh my God, I'm so sick of hearing from this person. Just like you don't see that many like 900 page epics with only one POV, because it's a long time to stay with one character. But like I think for novellas, short stories, a short novel, first person with just like that one person can be really, really strong. Just don't tell Bill or he'll cancel.
No, I think, yeah. For me, it's definitely, it's very story dependent, but yeah, it lends itself better to shorter, because you have a more limited perspective, even more limited than for third person. Yeah.
What would you say is the hardest part of writing for you?
Oh, that's difficult. I don't
Answering
know.
stupid questions.
Yeah, it's just, I don't
Well,
know.
you'd mentioned
I
that
don't know that
like
I
trying
think,
to write a short story was hard because otherwise it was going to turn into a novel.
I'm not sure it's hard though, because I'll still only take a few hours to write a short story most of the time. I think I used to think that editing was really difficult. Of writing itself, I'm not sure. I mean, there are difficult points. There's always like around, if you have a novel that's going to be around 100,000 words, it's always at 30,000 and 70,000. I hit a wall and I need to step back for usually 4 or 5 days and just do something completely different. But then I know I just need to do something else, and then it just manifests itself what needs to happen next. So those are sort of like the tricky points, but I don't find writing itself difficult. I
So we
usually
can
just,
change it to the publishing process and like
oh,
marketing and all those kind of things. What's your least favorite part?
yeah, like all the writing bits, I love them. I'm always going to do them, even if I stop publishing at some point. Publishing is hellish, to be honest. It's so demoralizing, because you'll have like a small group of people who are super supportive, who is just lovely and love your books and sort of help give you the confidence that you're not just delusional and think that you're pretty good at writing. You know that you're okay. Other people like it, so I must be good enough to keep publishing. But it's the whole being seen, isn't it? It's so difficult. It's definitely it's been quite enlightening to now have a story that's very romance heavy and cozy fantasy, which is very popular. That has been just very. I think it's come at the right time, because otherwise I think I would just have quit and left and gone away by now. But it really shows genre matters more than you might think, because I think Reflections of Lily Damselfly in a way is a really, really good book. But I also think my series is on a different level, because it's a long series and you get to experience this massive, completely different world. It's just so different and unique, I think. For me, I don't understand why my space series is so difficult to sell, because I think it's actually really good. I understand why, like, it just doesn't hit the right market trends, which I can really see now that it's a lot easier if you hit the right little niches that people love. It's a lot easier. So it's not even really like anything your fault sort of thing if you're not doing well. This is more just sort of in general, any authors that are struggling, it's not your fault. You might have to just consider if it is because you're not writing to market. If you write niche, if your story is super unique, you're struggling to find, like me, comp titles. The only thing I really have that proper fits is Treasure Planet, the Disney movie. That fits really well for the first 3 books, but then that it doesn't fit for the next ones. And the next ones, I'm like, I have no idea how to. I've asked people and nobody knows of a comp title for them, so it's just sort of
it's hard.
It's hard.
A comp title, and you're like, well, it's like this, and then people will be like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
But yeah, it's really important, I think, to remember that if it is because obviously check all the first things, like, is the cover fine, is blurb fine, ask people what they like, people that will be honest. And not just be like, oh yeah, your cover is fine, and then your cover is something that you made on Amazon's cover mock-up thing.
I don't know. Those can be really, really good. I say from my ones that I
know,
made.
the typography is it's amazing. I mean, you have to consider things like that. Are your links easily available? Do you talk about your books? Because I see people that will be like, they'll pop up once every 6 months and be like, nobody ever buys my books, and I'm like, I've never seen you post a link. I've never seen you post anything. How are people supposed to find your books? So if you can do all of those things. Like, I'm really active on social media. My covers are great. I think my blurbs are great. At least people say that. I assume nobody's lying. But it's still really difficult to sell it, and I think it really shows with Lily Damselfly that it's the genre matters a lot, like a lot. If it's not something that's currently in the market, it will just be harder to sell, and that doesn't mean that your book is bad. But that's a struggle. It's a hard one to swallow, I think.
I went to my first in-person book events not too long ago, and like was selling at 2 different book events, and like I got a lot of people come up and look at my book, and like I sold a decent amount, but then like there'd be someone at another would be like, cozy fantasy, and here's the like Murder, She Wrote in Disneyland, and like she sold out.
Oh, God.
And I'm just there like, my book is good too. And then like another one I went to where just like I was nearby like a dark romance, and they were
Oh
just
God.
raking in the sales. And I'm like, "Hi, D&D fantasy." And I asked, like, do you read fantasy? And so I'm like, "Ew, no." So like, I got some, but like, yeah, like, and fantasy is a pretty big market, but compared to romance, it's just, it's not going to sell as much. So I think if
But if
writers
if
go
you
in
write
thinking like,
fantasy, the question is, are there dragons?
it's not like
Is there a dragon in it? Because then it will sell. But if you don't have dragons, or if you have, my dragons show up randomly for like tiny periods of time, and they're ditzy, they don't spew fire, and they're just, I can't even properly explain what they are. So I can't sell it as like a dragon fantasy, because they'll be for like 2 scenes and then they bug off because they forget that the people exist.
I don't have dragons, but I do have like enhanced animals. And I said that I don't want dragons, so my wife keeps telling me that I need to have enhanced flying lizards. So they're basically dragons. She's on me about this because she wants dragons, and like she tell her friends about it, and they're like, "Are there dragons?" And she's like, "No, there's not." I keep telling them to add dragons. So apparently that, just dragons. You'll sell
Dragons is like the one seller, I think, in fantasy, at least at the moment. I have lizard people, but I don't think that works.
Bella has shown up. Hi, Bella. So I heard from Thea Lyons that you and her live very close to each other, but that she has never actually met you because she wants to avoid you forever. That's not what she said. She said, like, "Oh no, she lives really close, but we just never actually are." Like, I can't remember if she said she goes where you work, or you go where she works, or.
I think she lives near where I work. Yeah, so we're quite often, and we're like passing ships because. So I work in a museum, and she went to the museum, but on the day I wasn't there because I work from home 2 days a week. So it just fitted that she went on one of the days that I was working from home.
She heard you weren't going to be there, and she was like, "Today's the day I've got."
Today's the day. She should come when I'm there. I'll give her a discount in the shop and everything.
I'll let her know that she can get a discount to the museum, and you guys can take pictures with your books. So one of the things with marketing that I keep hearing is like videos do better than pictures. And I've started trying to do some of those, but I can do them, but I think they take too long.
I must do them badly because we just bomb. The only thing that works is that one there.
Yes.
He still has his back on us because he's annoyed I'm loud.
Books with Barry, and you just like put a book in front of him and see if in like whichever the book he sniffs the most is the one that wins that people need to buy that day.
Oh, I had to like shuffle the books around. So the one that's there on the end now is The Advent of Winter, because it's a hardback. Because he was trying to destroy one of my River in the Galaxy copies.
Right.
I was like, I'm trying to sell this book. Don't like he was just trying to.
Guys, do you want a copy of a book that Barry ripped up? It's the extra special Barry Love book. He will sign it. Do you know Kylie Agard? She wrote The Hunter. She does a thing where she stamps, or she's done a few where one of her cats has signed the book. The little paw print.
Yeah. Well, I've not actually got any here, but he has signed some of my some of these. Okay. I think he signed 6 of them. So I've got 4 pre-orders for Lily Damselflies. So those 4 of them are going out, but that means there's still 2 with Barry paw prints. If anyone wants to do a pre-order.
There are 2 guys. Immediately run to the website. There are 2 books with Barry's paw print on it that you can buy right now for sale. What would you say is your favorite book, or is Barry's favorite book that you have written first?
Barry's. I don't think he liked any books, like, because they take my attention away from him.
Well, which of your books is the one that he's the least interested in trying to rip apart?
I'm not sure. I think he's tried to destroy all of them. Like he will just like if he sees a book lying around, he needs to go and like bite it. So I have to. Yeah. So those books are not there permanently because he would just destroy them.
Another example, you get like your proof copy that you've marked up and everything. You put it down with Barry and let him chew on it, and it's book tasting with Barry.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. I've got my old proof copies up on the shelf here. I could probably give them to him.
Yeah, give them to him, let him chew on one, and then be like, he's digging deep, and really.
I could tear the pages out, and he can be like on each page, and then I can send a chewed on page with each order.
It's marketing gold right there.
Yeah.
So, what is your favorite book that you've written?
Or
like the one you're most proud of? Or
I'm proud of both. I'm really proud of Lily Damselfly because it's so different, and it's because it's about chronic illness and sort of coming to terms with that. But also, the book I released in October. It is my fattest book. I can describe it. It is this one. And I mean, nobody has read it. I think 5 people read it, but Rubbles of McGrath. So it is the thickest of my books. And it's the second book in Balfour's trilogy. And it's just, I don't know, it's just something about the way everything comes together, because the first book is, I think that's why some people have had a little bit of struggle with it. They felt it was a little bit slow because it's all setting up. And then This one is the one where they're fighting in the Civil War and flying away on ships, and they think they've eaten some of their friends. Honestly, there's so much stuff going on. We get some of those Easter eggs from the sci-fi universe with fusion guns, and like there's a lot of action scenes. Like a really big epic fight at the end. Balfour loses a couple of limbs. I'm not going to spoil too much, but there's just so much in it, and I think even though there's lots of action packed into it, but it's actually the things I love about it is the way he becomes more resilient, because he's quite traumatized. He has really bad PTSD from his childhood, and this is the book where he really sort of comes into his own. He sort of settles down, even though it's in the middle of war and all that. It's just the way he sort of interacts with everyone, and yes, it's the character bits in this book that I love it. The way he sort of helps he helps his old enemy, and sort of ends up sort of maybe becoming friends with him, and they find common ground and like realize that they've both been to really dark places mentally and stuff like that. So I think for me that this book is really good, and yeah, nobody's read it because it's long and it's book 5 in a series. But it's also just book 2 in a series, so you don't have to read from the beginning.
So that's what I was going to ask. Do you need to read the first 3 to read the next series? Okay.
No, so I've sort of, this is what I've done with the color-coded covers. It's easier to show it. So the first 2 are mostly blue. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of red on them, but they're mostly blue, and that's because these are Merlin's books. So these 2 can be read by themselves. This is a complete arc, but I would recommend reading it as a trilogy. So you add the pink book, but this one has Tara, a different point of view, basically. But this one also works as a standalone. So you could just read that, but it definitely goes better if you read all 3. Right. And then the next books is a new trilogy. It's set, I think, 11 11, 12 years later. So you can completely skip the first ones and just start reading the green books. And the third one's going to be green as well. So that's why I have all these colors on the covers,
Right.
because I'm sort of trying to visually make you see where each closed arc is. There are sort of the themes that carry through everything, and if you read from book 1 all the way through, you will see things getting set up in book 1 and 2 that happens then, like, have something to do vitally with what's happening in book 8 or 9. But yeah, I'm trying to sort of make it more. I need to try and make it more clear that.
Have you considered doing like what Joe Abercrombie does with the First Law, where he has like the First Law trilogy and then the Age of Madness trilogy? So it's like each one has a separate like name for the trilogy, but they're all within the same world, and there's kind of like a reading order. Because like whenever I look at your stuff, I saw like books 1 through 5. My immediate assumption would be, like you wouldn't want to read books 4 and 5 at the beginning because you won't know anything that happened to those earlier ones. But if you did like rebrand like those other ones into like a separate trilogy within it, I could see how some people might, realize that it's not actually like something that you need to have read the other ones for, and maybe a few more eyes would pop up on those books. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I have no idea what I'm talking about. That just came to my mind. Like,
that is why I call it. So it does say that, not on the cover, but inside it says Balfour's trilogy in these green ones. Right. And I've considered what to call the first 3, but I just don't know what to call. I called the first 2 The River in the Galaxy duology, just because I'm not very clever with stuff like that. I don't know, like the actual book titles are really easy for me, but things like trilogy names and that, I don't find that easy for some reason.
I can see that.
Yeah, so yeah, I do need to do that. I try to do that on my link tree. It says like it's sort of divided into, there's a divider between the ones that are connected. But yeah, I need to figure out better ways of doing that.
I think you can do that kind of thing on Amazon too, like with KDP and everything. I'm not exactly sure how you do it, but like I could see like, because I would have definitely thought it makes sense now that you're telling me about it.
It does say in the Amazon description.
Does it?
Yeah, every book has a line. I think at the moment it's at the bottom, and I'm considering to move it to the top. So it's the first thing it says is these are in.
Okay, yeah, I do see that, but it's at the end of the description. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm thinking to move it up, so it's the first thing you see, to make it a little bit clearer. Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
And then I need to share reading orders and stuff like that more. I don't share those graphics enough, I think.
I mean, that's the kind of thing you could have as like a pinned post type thing, like the.
Yeah, I mean, I change my pin every week, so. But yeah, yeah, I change it a lot. Yeah.
I don't even know what my pin is currently because it's been a while since I've changed it, but it's just.
I think it's a good way to, because I don't know who actually. I never look at anyone's profiles unless I'm vetting them before I follow back to make sure I'm not following a bot.
Right.
But otherwise, I never look at people's profiles unless like they're asking about a retweet or repost or whatever. But I think other people do, because I do notice that if you have a new pin, more people will repost it for a little while. I don't know if it actually does anything, but yeah.
I don't know. Pins are one of those things that I just like, I do it every now and then, and I'm like, oh, I guess I could put a new one of these. So we've got, I think, anyone in the chat who has any questions, we've got a few more minutes. If you want to throw any questions in the chat to make sure that we ask Natalie, you can do that. So I have two more questions. I know you'd mentioned the third book in your Green trilogy is coming out here pretty soon. What's next on the writing horizon after that?
I think I've got one or two projects that I want to write this year. So I actually have an idea for a prequel for Lily Damselfly, but it's not a good idea to write and release it because it won't be a cozy, it would probably be a horror. So like it won't be the same people that would want to read it. But I am very tempted to write that because it would be sort of like a witch hunt era scene from I don't want to spoil anything, but it's seen from one of the major side characters' point of view.
I immediately thought of like her dad and Veronica and like their love story in the past. And I was like, okay, you could sell that pretty well.
Yeah, it has some of that. Also, we would get to see Lilje as you because so it's hinted at throughout the book, but basically she's lost all her memories from I think it's around 100. She's quite vague about it, but I think around 100, 150 years prior to this book. She's lost her memories because the water took her memories for reasons. I'm not going to spoil anything. And that's how it sort of set her back. And she's really, really different. The Lily we see in this book is really different to how she was in the centuries beforehand. So it would be a quite cool book because witch hunts and seeing Lilia like being all like really cool, doing water stuff and maybe hurting some people and things like that. So it would be really fun for me. So I probably will write it regardless of whether it's a good idea or not. So I would like to write that. Next year, I think I'm just doing 2 main novels for the space series. I'm not sure how much I'm going to release after those 2. They both work as standalones, so they're easy to just release as and when. I do have a really big epic project that I would love to get written, but I'm 40k into it, and I stopped because I realized I didn't have time to write it because it went from like, oh, this is just a fun little story that it'll be a novella, and then I was like, oh crap, we now have three to 4 point of views, and it's a really big epic. It'll probably be 140k or something like that, or
Nice.
maybe even a duology or trilogy.
Is that like fantasy?
Fantasy, completely different world. There's no horses. They ride on giant, basically like Irish elk instead.
Oh, that's cool.
And then they paint the antlers on the elk. It's really cool. I should draw some of that actually because they're really cool. There's like just weird. All the animals are weird because there's no horses. There's no regular cattle, so they use antelopes for milk and for wool and stuff like that.
Awesome.
It's really quite different and fun. It's fun to do a completely different world. Yeah. Well,
all right, and then
in the future.
Yeah, I mean that one sounds awesome. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that one here in the years to come because antelope milk, I mean, sign me up immediately.
Apparently it's quite salty because they live by the sea.
Okay, we got one more question. Which of your inner universe characters would you like to tell us about?
Oh God, that's difficult. I think I don't talk about her very much, but her would be the second book I'm releasing next year. Is Yolanthe, who's she's a slaver pirate, and she is not a particularly nice person. I'm not sure how it's gonna go with that. Because people might hate her because she has very questionable morals. She doesn't really have morals. She just sort of does whatever will get her the most money. She does have a hard line for certain things. Like she won't kidnap kids to sell into slavery. But if it's someone who's 18, she's like, nah, whatever. They've made bad choices to be here in the wrong place at the wrong time. So she's quite a difficult character really to like, I think, maybe for readers, but I love her. She's really different from me. She's very loud. She is very unreliable. I've written a short story when she's a kid, and she's a bit more reliable when she's a kid. But just writing that short story, I realized that all the things she's saying in her novel, she's just lying the whole time. Like the events are completely muddled around, and yeah, she changes everything to fit her own personal narrative. But her story is actually an enemies to lovers to enemies to something else. So I think it might sell well for that. Like, I don't know, but yeah, she's a space pirate. I just finished drawing her yesterday, so I actually need to post her her character card because I'm doing little character cards at the moment for my main characters.
I mean, if you say enemies to lovers to enemies with space pirates, you've already sold 100,000 books right there.
Well, I can hope. It would be nice to have something that can pay for more covers and stuff like that. I just don't want to be like in more debt. But like it's just, I just feel like I'm just digging myself further and further down for each release. But yeah,
and you've released a lot of books. I've only released 2, and I'm like, it's so expensive.
It is. Yeah.
So the last question I had, I'm taking a picture of my dog currently because she is rolling around on the couch. She's like, you've been talking too long. This is boring. Look at me. So what are a book or a few books that you have read, indie books that you want to shout out those authors that you really enjoyed, that you thought more people need to read?
I think Timothy's books, The Whisper That Replaced God, 1 and 2. I think a lot of people probably have seen them now, but more people need to read them. Every time I recommend someone, I don't know why, but Threads is a really good place to recommend books to people. It's harder to sell your own books, but if you recommend other people's books, people seem to buy them. At least they come back, and those the first one blew me away last year. I was in such a bad reading slump. I just couldn't get through anything, and I was like, it's an audiobook, it's a short one, I can sit down for 2 hours or however long it was. I think I only plan to listen to like one chapter and see how it was going, because normally that's what I do. I'll listen to one chapter and then need a break. But I didn't need a break. I just sat like enraptured. I loved it so much. So I want everyone to rave about those books, because
they are fantastic.
The voice is just amazing. It's so strong, and it's so. I love the fourth wall breaks and things like that, because it's quite dark, but it's also hilarious. Like
like the things that are happening are really dark, but his voice is funny in just like an unhinged way, and then like the pleasant reads, remarks, and everything. I love all those.
Yeah, evil rainforest. Yeah, so those ones for sure, but also, I mean, Co is here in the chat as well, but her book.
That's Far Removed, I think.
Far Removed. I've read quite a few books this year, actually, but that was the first book I read this year as an audiobook, and it's one that I keep coming back to. Like it's one that you really have to sort of ruminate on and think about. And I don't think I sped through it. I did read it quite fast. I mean, the Discworld books, it can take me 2 weeks to get through them. And Far Removed, I think I read it in 4 days because I was off for the Christmas, just after Christmas and New Year's. And it's just, I think I don't know how to explain it. It's just because it's not even like high action or anything, but it's just the way the characters are done and the world is just, it's unique, and there's so much attention to detail in it. You can tell, like you can feel the love that's gone into the book. I can't wait for the next one. I'm so excited. I need to read, there's a novella as well, which I need to read. But those books, I don't understand why more books aren't raving about it, because it's so good. It's really unique, and it's just amazing.
And Nanette just started with Spirit That Replaced God. Love it. I know, I'm pretty sure ZB Steele liked Far Removed a lot. Or I'm getting him mixed up with someone else. But I've heard about it. There's so many books.
The audiobook is really good. So you mentioned that audiobooks are better, so definitely put that on your...
Oh, is there an audiobook for that one? Nice.
Yes, and the narration is it's fantastic. I think like the narrator for Prisma, like one of the MCs, she's just so perfect. Like her voice is so perfect for that character. It's hard to explain, but it just feels like she's her. It's really good.
And then are there any like books on your TBR, anything that you're excited to get to?
I think the next one I'm gonna read is, I've got yours. Yes.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I do have yours, but I think it's 8 or 10 hours or something. It's a bit long.
It's like 11 hours, yeah. So it's a long one.
Yeah. It's just my brain fog is bad. So I've got the next one I've got up is, I think it's only 4 hours. It's The Witch in Ishenshire.
Yes.
Yes, is it Acelia Forest? I think.
I listened to that one. It's a lot of fun.
That's the next one. I just finished one of the what's it called, Discworld books today, so I'm gonna start that one tomorrow probably. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, that was a fun one. It was. You said that you hadn't read much cozy. That's a good example of a cozy one that.
Yeah, I need to start actually reading some cozy also, so I can actually get some subtitles that I know. Like
try, what's the name of it? It's by Andrew D. Meredith. Quaint Creatures.
Yes. Yeah.
And he is an audiobook narrator, so he.
That's true.
And it's only like 5 hours, maybe. It's like 200 pages, but it's a D&D inspired cozy fantasy. Like the main character is a giant who used to be like a dungeon related person who now is a veterinarian for the different creatures in the D&D world. And like, it was a really good one that also was, maybe 5 hours.
Yeah, I didn't know it was that short. I think I need to add that.
That was a good one. And short
credits. So cozy. I'll definitely get that one.
I never have credits. I use them all.
I try to always save like at least one or two, so I'm able to, whenever there's a new book coming out from a friend, then I can get it.
All right. Well, before we go, if you'll get your books out and show them off again, tell us where we can find them, the best place to buy them from, everything like that. Oh, and then your audiobook thing, I don't think we ever got to, but...
Oh, yeah, we never got to that. So I'm in talks with a couple of narrators. Hopefully one of them will accept an offer. I think I've made my pick of who I would like. So that should come quite soon for Lilja. That will be on Audible only because I'm doing royalties, because I'm poor. I need to do an audiobook cover as well because the square, like, it's really annoying. I don't know why it's square. So that's definitely coming. And then depending on how that all goes, I might try and get audiobooks for the series. Would start with that one, probably. The best places to get them is, I mean, wherever people want to get them, really, as long as
Your website.
they're not, as long as they're not going to a pirate site, I'm happy. The best place, if you want to properly support me, is my website, which is just nataliekelda.co.uk. I think pretty much all the books are about the same price, or a little bit cheaper than they are on Amazon. So if you can get drop shipped if you're in the US, if you want a cheaper shipping option, and you'll still get, or like you'll get little cool, cute bookmarks, and you'll get book plates, all sorts. So you'll still get that even if you get a drop shipped book. If you buy one of the sprayed edges, obviously the shipping might be a little bit prohibitive for some people in the US, but it's free if you're in the UK. So there's zero reason to buy off Amazon. Just because you get free shipping and you get art, bookmarks, and sprayed edges for cheaper than you do on Amazon. I've got some short stories on Itch as well. I'm trying that out. Itch.io. Yeah.
So everyone, so you said your website was nataliekelda.com?
co.uk. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because you're .co.uk because British things and everything.
Yes.
But yes, head to her website, support her, pick up some of those books.
There's 2 more orders will get Barry paw print book plates.
There are 2 more Barry book plates with Barry. Also, you should probably go to connect with Natalie on social media and bug her to do lots of marketing with Barry, like chewing up proof copies and things like that. It's marketing gold. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And I'm going to finish up Lilia Damselfly here, hopefully in the next week or so. And I think it's going to be a very good rest of the book. Thank you, everyone in the chat, for being here. We appreciate you. And now we're going to wave while the stream ends, because it always takes a little bit of time to end.